There is a specific moment that almost every wealthy person remembers, but almost nobody talks about. It is not the moment they bought their first house. It is not the moment they became a millionaire. It is a much smaller, much quieter moment. It is the first time they opened their banking app, expecting to feel that familiar tightness in their chest, and instead, they felt nothing but calm. For most of your life, checking your bank account probably feels like a small act of bravery. You open the app, you brace yourself, and you hope the number is higher than you remember. That feeling has a name in psychology. It is called financial anxiety, and it is the default emotional state for the vast majority of adults living paycheck to paycheck. But somewhere along the journey of building wealth, that feeling flips. You open the same app, and instead of dread, you feel something closer to quiet satisfaction. Nothing about the app changed. The only thing that changed is the number sitting inside it. Today we're going to talk about that number. Not $1 million, not some fantasy retirement figure that feels impossibly far away. We are talking about $20,000, and I am going to make the case that this specific number, not 100,000, not $1 million, is actually the most important psychological and financial threshold you will ever cross. Before we go further, if you are someone who is actually trying to build real wealth instead of just talking about it, go ahead and hit subscribe right now, because this channel exists specifically to help you make smarter, calmer, more strategic decisions with your money. Here is the myth we need to destroy immediately. Popular culture has convinced an entire generation that nothing matters until you hit 6 figures. Influencers flash net worth screenshots. Headlines obsess over the mythical millionaire next door. And so millions of people looking at their own modest savings account conclude that their progress is basically meaningless until they reach some enormous, distant number. That belief is not just wrong. It is actively harmful, because it discourages people from noticing the very real, very measurable transformation that happens long before 6 figures ever enters the picture. $20,000 is where that transformation begins. Not because of what it can buy. In most American cities, $20,000 will not buy you a house, will not buy you financial independence, and will not let you quit your job tomorrow. Its power is not in its purchasing ability. Its power is psychological. There are 2 states that every person operating under financial stress cycles between. The first is what we will call survival mode. In survival mode, every financial decision is reactive. You are not thinking about the next 10 years. You are thinking about the next 10 days. A single unexpected expense, a car repair, a medical bill, a slightly higher electric bill in the middle of summer can send your entire month into chaos. Survival mode is exhausting precisely because it forces your brain to treat every financial decision as an emergency, even small ones. The second state is what we will call growth mindset. In growth mindset, you are no longer reacting. You are planning. Decisions stop being about surviving the next 2 weeks and start being about where you want to be in 5 years. This shift does not happen because you suddenly earn more money. It happens because you finally have enough of a buffer that small emergencies stop feeling like catastrophes. And based on patterns observed across thousands of personal finance case studies, financial coaching sessions, and behavioral economics research, that buffer tends to appear right around the $20,000 mark. It is large enough to cover most emergencies outright. It is large enough to represent real, visible progress. And it is large enough to prove to yourself, not to anyone else, that you are capable of consistent, disciplined saving. That last part matters more than people realize. $20,000 is proof. It is evidence that you are not just someone who talks about getting better with money. You are someone who actually did it. And once your brain accepts that evidence, everything downstream becomes easier, because you stop asking yourself whether you can build wealth, and you start asking yourself how much wealth you are going to build. Now let's talk about why this number is not just psychologically important, but mathematically important as well, because this is where most personal finance content completely fails to explain what is actually happening. Here is the uncomfortable truth nobody tells beginners. The first T, how the $20,000 you save will almost certainly be the hardest and slowest money you ever accumulate in your entire financial life. Imagine someone earning a modest income who manages to save around $1,000 a month on average after all their expenses. At that pace, ignoring any investment growth for a moment, reaching $20,000 would take roughly 20 months of pure discipline, pure sacrifice, and pure consistency, with almost no help from compound interest along the way, simply because the balance is still too small for growth to meaningfully contribute. This is the stage where most people quit. They look at their progress after 6 months, see something like $6,000, compare it to influencers flashing six-figure screenshots, and conclude that the entire process is pointless. What they don't realize is that they are standing at the base of a mountain that gets dramatically easier to climb the higher you go. Let's say that same person, now armed with a bit more discipline and perhaps a modest raise, continues saving and investing at a similar pace, but now benefits from their first $20,000 actually earning a return in the market. Historically, diversified stock market investments have returned somewhere around 7 to 10% annually before inflation, according to long-term data tracked by firms like Vanguard on broad market index funds. At that point, something interesting starts happening. That first $20,000 is no longer sitting still. It is generating its own income, separate from your paycheck entirely. If we assume a modest 7% annual return, that first $20,000 alone is now generating roughly $1,400 a year without you lifting a finger. That is real money arriving passively, stacking directly on top of whatever you are saving from your job. This is why the second $20,000 often takes noticeably less time than the first, perhaps 17 months instead of 20, even if your saving habits stay exactly the same. You are not saving faster. Your money is simply starting to help you. Now let's fast forward further, because this is where the math becomes genuinely exciting. Once someone's portfolio reaches somewhere around $400,000, again assuming a reasonable long-term average return based on historical Vanguard and S&P 500 data, that portfolio alone can realistically generate around $20,000 in growth in roughly 5 months, sometimes even less during strong market years. Read that again. The same $20,000 that once took you nearly 2 full years of grinding, sacrificing, and budgeting to save manually can eventually be generated by your portfolio alone in less than half a year without a single additional dollar from your paycheck. This is the mathematical reality of compound growth, and it is precisely why the first $20,000 feels so disproportionately difficult compared to every dollar that comes after it. You're essentially building the engine during that first stretch. Once the engine exists, it starts pulling weight on its own, and your job simply becomes fueling it consistently while it does increasingly more of the work. Albert Einstein reportedly referred to compound interest as one of the most powerful forces in the universe. And whether or not he actually said those exact words, the underlying math behind that idea is completely real. Money that grows on top of previously grown money creates an accelerating curve, not a straight line. And that curve only becomes visible once you have enough capital in the system for it to start compounding meaningfully. This is exactly why financial advisors constantly emphasize starting early, even with small amounts. It is not about the size of your first contribution. It is about giving the compounding engine as many years as possible to build momentum, because the difference between starting at 22 and starting at 32 can mean hundreds of thousands of dollars in lost growth by retirement, purely due to lost compounding time. Let's put a real face on this acceleration curve. Imagine 2 friends, both starting at 25, both eventually saving and investing the same total amount over their careers. The first friend front-loads her investing in her 20s, reaching that first $20,000 quickly and consistently adding to it every year after. The second friend delays, spending her 20s on lifestyle upgrades and only starting to invest seriously in her mid-30s. By the time both of them reach 65, even if the second friend eventually contributes more total dollars over her lifetime to try to catch up, she will almost certainly end up with meaningfully less than her friend who started a decade earlier. This is not a hypothetical exaggeration. It is a direct mathematical consequence of compounding, repeatedly demonstrated in long-term studies published by firms like Vanguard and Fidelity comparing early versus delayed retirement contributions. Time in the market, not perfectly timed contributions, is consistently shown to be the single largest driver of long-term portfolio growth. This is also why the $20,000 marker matters so much as an early milestone rather than a distant afterthought. Every year you delay reaching, it is not simply a year of missed savings. It is a year of missed compounding on top of those savings. And those missed years are mathematically impossible to fully recover later, no matter how aggressively you try to save in your 40s or 50s instead. If this kind of breakdown is helpful to you, drop a like on this video, because it genuinely helps this channel reach more people who are stuck exactly where you might have been 6 months ago. Reaching $20,000 is not just a math problem, it is an identity problem. And this is the part of the conversation almost nobody addresses honestly. To actually reach that number, especially on an average income, you cannot rely on motivation alone. Motivation is unreliable. It shows up strong for the first 2 weeks of January and quietly disappears by February. What gets someone to $20,000 is not motivation. It is a rebuilt identity around discipline. Consider a woman named Rachel, a marketing coordinator earning $52,000 a year in a mid-sized city. For most of her 20s, Rachel considered herself simply bad with money. Not reckless, just someone who never seemed to have anything left over by the end of the month. The truth wasn't that Rachel was bad with money. She had simply never built a system that made saving automatic rather than optional. Rachel's shift began the day she set up an automatic transfer, moving a modest amount into a separate investment account the very moment her paycheck landed, before she ever had the chance to see that money sitting in her checking account and mentally justify spending it elsewhere. This single decision quietly rewired her financial identity from someone who saves whatever happens to be left over to someone who saves first and adjusts spending around what remains. That shift, repeated consistently for close to 2 years, is what eventually carried Rachel past the $20,000 mark. And something unexpected happened once she got there. Her relationship with her job completely changed. This brings us to one of the most powerful and most underrated concepts in personal finance. It is often called walking away money, and it fundamentally transforms the power dynamic between an employee and an employer. Someone living paycheck to paycheck cannot realistically walk away from a toxic job, an unreasonable manager, or an underpaid position because doing so threatens their ability to pay rent next month. That financial fragility forces people to tolerate situations they would otherwise never accept, simply because they have no cushion to fall back on. Once someone has $20,000 sitting in an accessible account, everything shifts. Suddenly, if a manager crosses a line, if a workplace becomes toxic, or if a better opportunity appears elsewhere, that person has the financial runway to actually act on it. They can afford several months without income if absolutely necessary. They can negotiate more confidently because they are no longer negotiating from a position of desperation. This is precisely why $20,000 changes career dynamics so dramatically. It is not about the money itself. It is about leverage. An employee with zero savings is, in a very real sense, financially trapped, regardless of how talented or valuable they actually are. An employee with meaningful savings holds actual bargaining power, because their employer can no longer assume they have no alternative but to stay silent and accept whatever conditions are offered. Rachel eventually used this exact leverage. Roughly 18 months after crossing the $20,000 mark, she was offered a promotion with a workload increase but no meaningful raise attached. In the past, she would have quietly accepted it out of fear. Instead, She calmly explained that she would need appropriate compensation to take on the added responsibility, fully prepared to walk away if the answer was no. She got the raise. Her employer sensed, correctly, that she was no longer negotiating from fear. This is the quiet, often invisible power of that first $20,000. It does not just sit in an account earning interest. It fundamentally changes how confidently you move through every major decision in your life, from your job to your relationships, to your willingness to take calculated risks that could meaningfully improve your future. Now let's talk about the single biggest obstacle standing between most people and their first $20,000, and it has nothing to do with income. It has everything to do with what they choose to spend that income on. Consider the modern car payment. According to widely reported industry auto loan data, the average new car payment in the United States frequently falls somewhere between $600 and $800 a month, often stretched across 6 or 7 years of financing. Add insurance, and many people are spending close to $1,000 a month simply to drive a depreciating asset that loses a significant percentage of its value the moment it leaves the dealership lot. Here is the illusion at the heart of this decision. A brand new car feels like a milestone, a symbol of success, proof that you have made it. In reality, for most people financing that purchase over several years, it is quietly one of the largest obstacles preventing them from ever reaching real financial security. Let's run the actual math. Imagine someone chooses a reliable, slightly older used car instead, with a monthly payment, insurance, and maintenance totaling around $300 a month compared to the $900 a month required for the new vehicle scenario. That $600 monthly difference, invested consistently into a diversified index fund instead of spent on a newer vehicle, assuming a historical average annual return of around 8%, could realistically grow into well over $100,000 over the course of 15 years. Read that again. The simple decision to drive a reliable used car instead of financing a brand new one, sustained consistently over just 15 years, could realistically be worth more than $100,000 in investment growth. That is not a minor lifestyle adjustment. That is a life-changing difference in long-term wealth, hidden inside a decision that most people never even calculate before making it. This is the essence of opportunity cost, one of the most important and most ignored concepts in all of personal finance. Every dollar you spend is not just gone. It is also the future version of that dollar, multiplied by years of potential compound growth that you are choosing to give up. A $600 car payment is never just $600. It is $600 plus everything that money could have become if it had been invested instead. This same principle extends far beyond cars. Oversized apartments rented purely for appearances, expensive subscriptions nobody actually uses, and lifestyle upgrades chased simply to keep up with social comparison all quietly consume the exact capital that could otherwise be building toward that critical $20,000 turning point. Social media has made this trap significantly worse over the past decade. Every scroll through an app is now a curated highlight reel of vacations, new cars, and renovated kitchens, almost none of which reveal the debt, the financing terms, or the financial stress hiding quietly behind the image. This creates a distorted sense of what normal spending actually looks like, pushing people to chase an appearance of wealth that often directly prevents them from building the real thing. There is a term financial psychologists sometimes use for this pattern, describing people who spend heavily to project an image of success while their actual net worth remains stagnant or negative. It is entirely possible and disturbingly common for someone earning a six-figure salary to have less in savings than someone earning half as much, purely because one person is optimizing for appearances while the other is optimizing for their future $20,000 milestone and everything that comes after it. None of this means you should never enjoy your money or that every dollar must be invested with monk-like discipline. It means understanding clearly and honestly what you are actually trading away every time you choose a financial illusion of success over the substance of real financial progress. So, Here is the strategic takeaway to walk away with today. Stop measuring your progress against someone else's six-figure screenshot. Start measuring it against your own $20,000 milestone, because that number, more than almost any other in personal finance, marks the exact moment your money starts working as hard as you do. The first $20,000 will likely be the slowest, most difficult money you ever save. But it is also the most important, because it builds both the financial engine and the psychological identity required for everything that follows. Once you cross that threshold, the math accelerates, your confidence compounds right alongside your money, and the version of you standing on the other side of that number will make every future financial decision from a position of strength instead of fear. If this video gave you a clearer picture of exactly where to focus your energy right now, make sure you are subscribed, because we are going to keep building this roadmap together, one strategic milestone at a time. Your $20,000 is not just a number. It is the turning point where your future finally starts working for you.